state capitol.
And joining us now is the Director of Agriculture, the Department of Agriculture, forgive me, John Sullivan, who oversees a lot of the state fair and the fairgrounds. Your office there on the fairgrounds this year.
Right.
Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here, Mark. Thanks.
State fair now underway.
Yes.
And people are packing in. You have some pretty lofty goals for crowd size and what you want to happen this year. What are the biggest changes that people can expect this year at the fair that maybe they haven't seen in the past?
Well, it's just some of the comments that we've already heard. It's just the fairgrounds themselves, the condition of the grounds. Obviously, the Coliseum with the reopening of that, that's been a huge attraction. And it's really fun to see people's reaction when they see it, either from the outside, but probably more importantly, when they walk in the inside and they look up and they're like, oh my gosh, this is what an amazing, beautiful building. So that's obviously, you know, kind of the crown jewel of the fairgrounds itself. But just the grounds themselves, I mean, the flowers, the work that the staff has done, just trying to make the place look as appealing as possible. Really a lot of good comments about that, which obviously makes me feel proud of the job that our good folks out there are doing.
I do have to ask you about sort of a little controversy that sparked a few weeks back when Governor Pritzker's office intervened and said they were going to cancel a music performance downstate, farther downstate, at the DuQuoin State Fair.
Correct.
But then we saw some politicians say, hang on a minute, Snoop Dogg is performing at this state fair, and there was just a lot of that political back and forth. I want to ask you to comment on the politics of it,
okay,
because you're administering the state fair, but about the security of it. We saw some folks who were agitated by this decision online talking about perhaps staging a protest or bringing Confederate flags to the state fairgrounds in Springfield,
right,
to protest.
Yep.
What would happen to those people if they do?
So first of all, we have an area, if they want to protest, we feel that's free speech, where we're going to allow them to do that as long as it's a peaceful protest. We'll have an area designated that they can do that. As far as carrying, you know, anything that they want to wear, if they want to, you know, flags or whatever they want to wear on their clothing, that's their right. But as far as carrying flags, regardless of, you know, banners or flags or anything that, I mean, literally could kind of be used as a weapon, they're not going to be allowed. So I had a meeting with the state police earlier in the week, last week, I guess, and you know, we talked about how we would handle that situation if it arises. We don't think it's going to happen, but again, we just want to be prepared.
It's on your radar, so
yeah,
you're
absolutely
prepared for it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Also at the state fair this year is something new, a hemp plant.
Yes.
Why the significance? Why showcase that in Illinois now?
Great question. So first of all, last year the General Assembly passed the Industrial Hemp Act, and also the federal Farm Bill has a provision in it to allow for the growing and the production of hemp again, which has been outlawed for decades, since back in the 40s. And so we at the Department of Ag were responsible for the applications and the growers and the testing to make sure that the you know, hemp is a derivative of cannabis, but the THC levels are low enough that it's considered to be hemp, so it's non-hallucinant.
People aren't getting high on it.
They're not going to get high on it, right? So, so we've been promoting hemp. We've had, I think, about between 12 and 1,300 applications to grow and/or process hemp this year. Over 20, I think about 22,000 acres that have been applied for to grow. So a lot of interest in the state. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to have some plots growing on the fairgrounds so that we can try to help educate the public as to the difference between hemp and marijuana, which there is a difference there. So we have our plots. They look great. And we're going to have somebody there I think it's between 1 and 3 every day during the fair to answer questions and try to educate the public.
And then a lot of people in our audience and across central Illinois, this is a big farm state. A lot of our audience are farmers. And how has your office interacted with many of them? I know we're out of that early stretch of the planting season where rainwaters were making things quite difficult. What is the state of Illinois and its crop this year? Where are we at, and have we escaped the worst of it?
I guess, I don't think we can answer that question yet.
When will we know? What are the signs?
Well, and that's where I was going with it. So what we're trying to do, and I've been traveling around the state. I was to the Quad Cities. I was up to LaSalle, Peru. I was over in Champaign. I've been down, you know, to southern counties too. And the crop, there's quite a variety around the state. There's some areas that the crop looks actually pretty good, and there's other counties and areas of the state that either they didn't get the crops planted, or the crops are very uneven. And we don't know the extent of this disaster right now because it's going to depend on the rest of the growing season. We know there's a disaster. There's no question about that.
We're talking about the flooding specifically along the Mississippi River, but also some of the
Both. Absolutely. The flooding as well as the acres that didn't get planted or the acres that got planted so late. Depending on what the rest of this growing season is like. Is it going to continue? Are we going to get rain? Is it going to be hot and dry? Or probably the biggest factor that we don't know, if we have an early frost, that's going to really damage this crop because it's so late in the planting season. So we're not going to know the extent of this disaster until after harvest.
So it's not yet appropriate to ask where this season ranks compared to seasons past.
Well, we could ask, and we could certainly speculate, and I'd say it's going to be one of the worst that we've ever seen. And as I talk to farmers that have, farmed their entire life, 50, 60, 70 years, they've never seen a growing season, and a planting season, I should say, like this. So I think we know there's going to be, tens of millions of acres that didn't get planted. We know that there's a lot of acres that did get planted are late. They're not going to yield like they normally would. I think it's going to be a historic year.
Before we let you go, any favorite features, items, attractions, things that you're looking to enjoy at the State Fair this year personally?
You mean besides the food?
Maybe that's at the top of the list.
It is at the top of the list. I mean, I just love sampling some of the new and different foods, but I have my go-tos. I love pork, and I love the pork on the stick, and of course corn dogs, and the ice cream. I'm a huge ice cream lover, so I love the ice cream out there. As far as the fair, I mean, I'm a farm guy. I have born and raised around livestock. I love spending time in the hog and the swine and goat and sheep barns.
Really, the State Fair showcases a big part, an important part of Illinois' economy, the agricultural part there. So, Director Sullivan, thank you for joining us to highlight some of that.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.
Our Reporters Roundtable is next, and they're going to share some of their favorite things about the State Fair, too, so stick around.